Hello. Good morning for the folks in the US and for the folks at Europe and other parts of the world. Maybe not morning, but thanks for joining us. We're very excited for this webinar. It's a one I've been anticipating for a long time, and I know a lot of you have as well. We actually have more registrants for this webinar than we've ever had before, so no pressure on us. But we've got some good content to deliver to you today. We've kind of marketed this as a workshop, and that's exactly what it's going to be. We have a few slides to kick it off to kind of set the foundation and explain what we're going to be doing. But the majority of the webinar is going to be spent screen sharing, showing you exactly how to set up an MCP server for Domotz, and it should be pretty good. Hopefully the audio and video is looking good for you. If you've been on a webinar with Domotz in the past year, you've probably seen my face on them. I'm Jace Holyoke. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here, and we're joined by a familiar face, but it's been a while, Domenico. He is the founder of Domotz, and he was the first one to actually experiment with what we're going to show you today. Has been neck deep in AI, and all of his friends are AI bots, so I thought no one's more equipped to speak to AI than Domenico. Did I forget anything?
No, you named them all. So,
all right.
Hi, everybody.
I think we're okay. Audio's working. Okay, thanks. And we want to make this interactive, so please chat in. We have a lot of content though, so preemptively, what we've done is set up a Reddit thread on the Domotz subreddit. And if you have questions after the fact, you can ping us there, and we'll do our best to respond to those as well. So if you're asking, I know someone here has probably already asked, I haven't seen it yet, but if you're asking for a recording, we're actually live streaming this to all of our social channels, including the Domotz YouTube channel. So the recording should be live immediately at the conclusion of the webinar. All right, enough bureaucracy. Let's get into it. We have a lot of people here and a lot of people registered. So most of you already know Domotz, but for those of you that don't, I'm going to do just a quick 30 seconds review of who we are. If you know Domotz, just bear with me and entertain me for doing this really quickly. We are a network monitoring and management solution, and we really are focused on providing visibility to any company that needs to understand what's connected to the network. We want to give them visibility into the health metrics associated with those devices, and then some features allowing them to rectify issues that they identify on the network as well. We're a little bit different than our competitors in a few ways. A few ways that I'll just highlight briefly is one is our accessibility. And when I say that, I mean it kind of in two ways. One is the design of the product is designed to be easy to use, democratized amongst all your technicians at your business. And the second way is our price point. So when people are migrating from another solution to Domotz, oftentimes they're saving money in that migration. Another difference for us is how we do our discovery. We identify devices at the layer 2 level by the MAC address, which provides more accurate device identification. And if devices change IP addresses, we're better at tracking those changes as well and maintaining the accurate identification of that device. The third one I'll just highlight really quickly is we go beyond just basic monitoring and aim to provide our customers with a suite of features as well to actually rectify issues. So things like configuration management, backup and restore, power management, remote access, etc. My mic keeps spiking. Okay, well, I hope that's okay. And last one here I'll highlight, and this is the one that's most relevant to what we're doing today, which is our API endpoints. So we have 130 API endpoints, which can easily be integrated into AI, and that's what we're going to show you today, which adds a whole nother element on how you can benefit from Domotz. So if you're here, you are engaged in network monitoring in some capacity likely, and what we've realized is the reasons people don't adopt network monitoring or even have adopted it but not at scale can be the reasons that they aren't doing that can often be addressed with AI like we're going to show you today. So Domenico, would you mind just kind of giving us a breakdown on why do people need monitoring and how can AI help with these pain points?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everybody. The reason why people need monitoring is so that they know what to do whenever they encounter a problem. And just like when we have our own problems in life and we kind of assess reality and take decisions on back of evidence that we find, when we have problems within our network, we need to take evidence, and what monitoring does provides an historical framework for that evidence, and allows us actually to have a much better understanding of how to move and elaborate theories on what may be going wrong and find a resolution. The reason why I think a lot of people struggle with monitoring is that oftentimes to set up monitoring properly is as big of a job as actually solving the problems that we're trying to monitor for. And therefore, unless you have problems at scale, it's often hard to justify the time investment to actually set up your monitoring solution correct. And I think this is true, frankly, for any monitoring solution. I mean, we try to make ours easier, but any IT asset could have dozens, hundreds of properties that could be relevant in a troubleshooting session, and going and setting up setting them all up. It is a job, and there's different protocols, and sometimes things don't work. And definitely manufacturers don't make it easy. SNMP as a technology is decades old and hasn't kept up with time. If you're looking at APIs, which provide richer content, those APIs, there's no standard, everybody's got their own. So it is a really, one solution, one problem, one solution kind of thing. And the reason why AI can help is in two ways. First of all, it can actually help setting up your monitoring solution for you. And we're going to try to show you that today. And something else we're going to try to show you today is how AI can actually manage to observe a lot more, a lot faster than a human can, and therefore it can really help take down time to resolution. So in root cause analysis, AI shines. First of all, because it is very, very methodical, and therefore it goes through a process. And the other reason, it just can capture more than a human mind can. So these are, we believe the two top reasons why AI specifically in network monitoring can make a huge difference.
Okay, I see some of the comments about my mic. I'm going to do my best, but let me know if it's still unbearable. Thanks for that, Domenico. And I think it's important to kind of set the stage on the architecture of what we're doing here. It's also helpful that like a big chunk of the people here are probably in the AV space. So maybe I can help you, you can help me with the mic. Okay, I tried to move my mic away a little bit, so we'll see. All right. It's important for us to understand the architecture of what we're actually looking at here before we build this project as well. So this top row here, which I'm going to focus on initially, is the Domotz product. So we have the collector. Any network monitoring solution is going to have a network probe of some sort that's going to be deployed to a network and scan the network and identify all the data and information about the associated devices in the network automatically ongoing. That data is going to be then piped into the Domotz cloud where it is safely stored. And then from there, it's going to be transformed and presented in our front end, which is our web application, our mobile application, et cetera. The second row here is where we're going to be spending our time today. It's not really a Domotz product. It's integrating the Domotz data into a third-party solution. This is possible because of our public API, which we have 130 plus API endpoints, which we'll dive into and show you exactly what you can do once this is integrated. And then once you have that data from the API, it's not as simple as just providing that API to the AI models. What you need to do is have this kind of middleman, which is the MCP server, which takes those API endpoints and exposes it in a way to AI that makes it much more usable for the AI model. And then once that's set up, the AI model can more easily and effectively interact with the data from the public API, which is derived from the Domotz cloud. So this is the architecture we're going to be reviewing. The bottom row here is where we're going to be spending our time and actually configuring the MCP server and showing you what you can do when it's set up. There is a difference between the APIs and the MCP server. Domenico, would you walk us through kind of the differences between these two things?
Yeah, so actually, in principle, AI does not need MCP to do its magic, because it's smart enough that it can just use APIs. I mean, the APIs are the way that we interface programmatically against any product. And as long as there's documentation, AI can read the documentation of the API and actually make those calls. The reason why we have MCPs, not just for Domotz, but for anything, is that if you just let AI consume the APIs on its own, if you do it 10 times, you're likely to get probably 10 different answers, because there is 1,000 ways of doing everything. And AI has got this knack of actually trying always something different. And in order to align functionality, which is really at the API level, with business outcomes, there's these translation layers that the guys at Anthropic who made this MCP concept, which then they kind of open sourced, was to try to, because I mean, ultimately AI is beautiful because in the programming language in AI is English. You don't need to know any code whatsoever. You don't need to care about any APIs. You need to speak English and state your problems. And the MCP is a layer that transforms all these programmatic interfaces into business problems. So MCPs are made of tools, of capabilities, and they are defined. Every tool or capability essentially is a collection of APIs used in a certain sequence, in a certain way, to actually solve a business problem. So you should look at MCP as kind of like a little cheat sheet that allows you to use not just Domotz APIs. This is true for frankly any software that you can interact with, in a way that is conducive to the business problem that you're solving, because you can guarantee outcomes by following these protocols. I mean, MCP is it's called Model Context Protocol. It's a set of rules that you go through to get to an outcome. And the point here is that there could be 1,000 MCPs. Really, an MCP is really a reflection of the use cases that you have. And today, because there's a lot of people on this webinar, so, and this, this is the first on the topic. We try to be very simplistic and very easy, and we basically expose the probably a dozen or so tools for some most obvious use cases. But this is an infinite topic, because you could create your own MCP. You could leverage MCPs that we make and that we publish. So treat this as a kind of a get to know MCP moment. And in fact, if you want to, if you find yourself playing with this, if you want to know more, if you want to go deeper, I think we're going to send after this a little follow-up, and anybody that wants to, sign up to our, MCP efforts that we're making, general AI efforts, and wants to follow and wants to dig deeper, we'll be very happy to follow up with them and give them access to more stuff. So treat this as an opening to prove the concept that we can facilitate business outcomes to non-programmers by kind of forming, by exchanging information against our software or any software via an MCP server.
Yeah, so we are now going to kind of transition to the deployment process of the MCP server, and then we'll show you step by step how to configure that, and then we will show you some example use cases. I did send a video out prior to this webinar with some prerequisites that you need if you want to follow along. So if you didn't watch the video or you didn't receive it before the webinar, let me just briefly review kind of what you need if you're going to deploy it in the way that we're going to demonstrate today. So the first thing you need is a Domotz account. And if you have one, great. We'll show you how to access the API in a second. If you don't have one, you can create an account at domotz.com with a free trial, and you can do all of this in the free trial period as well. The second prerequisite you need is Claude Desktop. And Domenico alluded to this. There's a million different ways you can set up MCP servers and use different large language models with them. For our example, we're going to be using Claude Desktop. The third prerequisite you need is Node.js version 18 plus installed on your system. This allows you to install the dependencies, including the Anthropic SDK that's required for the MCP server. And the last prerequisite you need is Git installed on your system. So Domenico alluded to this in his last slide, but it's not just a matter of supplying all the API keys or endpoints to the AI. You really need to build a system around it. And so what we've done in this sort of like, I guess we could kind of frame it as like a beta version of this, is built a GitHub repository that does exactly that. And we've bundled the API endpoints and provided some additional context in a way that makes it a little bit more usable out of the box than just slapping in. I mean, a lot more usable out of the box than just slapping the API endpoints into your AI model. So if you want to follow along, you're gonna need these 4 things. And here's exactly what we're going to be deploying here in a second. So I've already mentioned that there's a lot of different API endpoints with Domotz. The reason why you can't just supply access to all 130 of them, and I know this intimately because I did this, is because it just becomes unusable. And there's 2 main reasons why it becomes unusable. The first is AI has introduced this concept of tokens, and it's kind of how AI usage is measured, and how different AI companies charge for their AI models. And if you just dump in all 130 endpoints, what happens is it's very ineffective and will pull a bunch of data that maybe it doesn't need to pull based on what you're asking, and it immediately drains your tokens. And so you kind of hit a wall there. And related to that is this context window, which is how much information the LLM can kind of maintain in context at any given moment before it's just overwhelmed and it can't function anymore and can't help you reach whatever business outcome that you're driving to. So what we've done is in this GitHub repository, we've divided all of our APIs into 10 different categories. And these categories make it much more efficient for the AI model to call upon which category it needs versus calling upon a mass call on all or a significant number of APIs that it didn't need to. We've also introduced 3 composite tools as well. And what this means is basically if, like, for example, let's say you're querying the AI about a specific device. Chances are you're going to want more than just that device. You're going to want some information about it. And because it's already polling that API, we may as well supply that additional information from the first ask. So you don't have to keep asking, and it has to keep polling your APIs, draining your token usage as well. And the last thing we've included in this repository is a custom Claude code skill. Now, we're not going to dive into Claude code in this webinar. That would be a great follow-up we could do. But we've also integrated the foundations of this Claude code skill into the actual documentation that Claude Desktop will use as well. And basically what it does is it just provides additional context to the AI model on how it can interact with the API and what information it should expect to get in return as it does interact with the API. Okay, that was a lot of information. I think we're done with that for now. And so let's actually go through the deployment process. And we're going to do a live demonstration here. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is share in the chat our GitHub repository. And let me just share this on to all destinations. So this is the repository that hosts the MCP server that we've built. And we'll come back to that in a second, because the first step we actually need to do is log into Domotz, which hopefully you can see here, and get your API key. Like I said, if you have an account already, you can access this. And if you don't, you can create one at domotz.com and start a free trial and get going on that as well. It's like it's looping. Bear with me on this. At least you know it's a live demonstration.
Can I share my screen maybe, or?
Hold on, I think I've got it. Here we go. Okay. So while that is coming up, once you have your API key, we're going to download the MCP server files, which is going to require a terminal to clone the repository that I've created. So we'll do that here in a second as well.
There's better connectivity in Italy, so if you want me to share the screen, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, that might be good. All right, I'm actually good. I'm good. For now, I'm good. Okay, so once you log in, you click your account, and then you can navigate to the Domotz API here, which is going to redirect you to the Domotz portal. And from the portal page, you can get your API key. Man, maybe this is super slow. Okay. Domenico, why don't you pull that up?
How to share my screen?
Yeah, just the middle button in the bottom. So I'm going to, okay, here we go. So once you get here, I think we're okay for now. You'll create your API key, and there's a few things you need to reference here. So this API server link is going to become important when we're setting up the configuration of the MCP, and then you're going to need to generate an API key. So you're going to click this button. It's going to open, it's going to prompt you for your password, and then it'll give you your API key. Once you have that, set that aside. Make note of this API server. We have one in the US and one in the EU, and you're going to need to know which one you need here in a second. Once you have the API key, the next step is to clone the folder from the GitHub repository. So if you have Git installed, what you'll do is just type in Git, and then you'll do the URL to the repository. Once I hit enter on this, it's going to clone this folder locally on your machine. I already have this folder deployed on my machine, but I'll just hit it anyway. And then you're going to do open up that folder specifically, which is just this command. And now your terminal is in that folder. Once your terminal is in that folder, you can run the install prompt, and this is where you're using Node to actually execute the dependencies and install the Anthropic SDK, which is required to set up the MCP server. Once you click install on that, it's going to take 30 seconds. Shouldn't take longer than that, probably less. And you can exit out of your terminal. So from here, there's only really one more step you need to finish the configuration of this. And you're going to go into your Claude desktop, which I have pulled up here. And you're going to open up the settings and click on developer. You can see I already have my MCP running here, but if you don't have one running, it'll just have a button that says edit config, which you can see here. When I click this, so git clone. Yeah, the command is git clone, sorry. And then the URL that's on the screen here isn't right. It needs to have git after the server as well, I believe. So if you're running into issues, I'll share it's in the README in the GitHub as well. So if you run into issues there. Okay, so then once you're done with the terminal commands, you come in here and you edit your config. When I click this button, it's going to open up the file, which is a JSON file. You can open it with any text editor. I'm not going to open mine because I already have my API keys in there, but I have this example here, and it's going to look something like this. Unless you already have MCP servers configured, obviously you can have multiple. So you would add Domotz to that. But if you don't have one configured, it's going to look like this. Okay, so on this file, you're going to need to make a few changes. In the GitHub repository, in the README file, I've created an example to help get you started. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you here. So this is the example that I have. I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it over the top of all of this. Now, there's a few changes you need to make here and things you need to look at. So the first is this API key or a URL. This needs to match what I showed in your account settings earlier. So if it's different, you need to change it. Then you will come up here and you'll paste your API key in between these two quotation marks, which I'm not going to demonstrate. Obviously, I'm not going to share the API keys, but for some reason I was so nervous I was going to share my API keys in this webinar. And then the last thing you need to do is
my API key anyway.
Yeah, replace this with the path to the folder that we've just downloaded. So for me, if I open up the repository, I have some instructions here as well. So for me, what I would do is I'm on Windows, so I'm going to just copy that. And then I would come in here, paste that, and then because I just deployed the folder, cloned the folder into my local account local desktop, it would be in this location. Yes, it opens that folder. The comment that just came in, it opens that folder. Inside that folder, there's a file that's called configuration desktop Claude, I think, something like that. Okay. So once you're here, you just need to make sure you save this, and then you can exit out of it. And you'll go back to Claude. And the last step you need to do is you need to completely exit out of Claude, power it down completely, and reopen it. So I would just open up Task Manager, fully remove Claude, end that task, and then reopen it. And then you should be able to open it back up, come to developer, and see that Domotz is running here. The last thing I'll show you here as well is if you go to connectors, you'll also see Domotz here. And if I click configure, you will be able to see all the 13 tools that I mentioned earlier. So there's the 10 categories here, as well as the 3 composite tools that I mentioned on that slide. Now, there is a little bit of access control here. If you want to give Claude unfettered access to the API, you can just click always allow. You can also require Claude to ask you before it makes a change or queries data, or you can block it from doing certain things as well. Okay. So now to the good stuff. Hopefully you followed along and you were able to do that. If not, like I said, the recording will be published and you can revisit any of the steps that I showed. It's also all documented in the GitHub repository. And we're on the subreddit, Domotz subreddit, afterwards. If you want to ping any questions there, I'd be happy to answer those. Okay. So yeah, I think we're going to run into some of these questions that we are going to have to address on a case-by-case basis afterwards. It can be a little finicky. Hopefully the instructions are, I know the instructions are well documented in the GitHub repository. So if you ran into an issue, I'd recommend revisiting the step-by-step process there. Once it's configured, I can chat Claude, and it's going to, in theory and in practice right here, hopefully, show me all the different agents that I have deployed in Domotz. All right. Can I paste the config in the chat? I paste the, let me just paste this one more time to the GitHub repository. It's all linked there and all the instructions are there as well, including the config. Okay, so we're here now. We have successfully integrated the Domotz MCP server into Claude, and I'm going to just do a little. I kind of want to just pose this question, which is like, what can you do once this is configured? And there's two elements to answer that question. The first element is, what can the API do? And to speak to that, obviously we have the API documented here. So you can see all the different actions it can take, all the different data it can query, et cetera, here. But really, that's only half of the equation. And the real magic comes when you can use the AI and the APIs together. You can take that data via the API and transform it in a way that benefits you and your business. So we're going to show you some example use cases now, but I wanted to just spend 1 second before we do that talking about token usage. So, so one thing just to kick it off is when you're querying things, make sure you're specific. This will allow Claude to be more effective. Let me give you an example. Rather than saying, show me all devices at this site, maybe you'd only need to initially say, show me all switches at this site, and it can respond to that. And then you can respond by saying, show me all access points at this site. And it performs better when you're more specific, and also it's going to save you money. I am on a paid version of Claude. Now you can use this on a free version of Claude, but the more queries that you have and the more intense usage that you are deploying with your conversations, you're going to run into a paywall pretty quickly. Another tip
I'm sorry. So it's
yeah, go ahead.
just cost. I mean, tokens are like air for AI, and you only have 200,000 that you can use in one time. And then, it's about a third of them are used to extract the next session of 200,000. So you're really playing with 140,000. And I mean, about 4 characters make a token. So you have 800,000, well, less because you have only 2/3 of that. You have around 500,000 characters you can play with. So if you consume it on irrelevant information, that's not going to be very efficient. So in general, the big thing with AI is that you need to try to be as efficient as possible in providing relevant information. And so, I mean, clearly there's also cost issues, but it's not just the cost. I mean, you can get more out of it if you're more specific. If you do a lot of blah, 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 you're going to get less value out of it. So I think Jason's point is trying to think less of functions, get me this, get me that, but more of problems of what you are trying to solve. And problems are, they refer to, something. And so, so you could say a site, but, don't say all devices. Or, you could talk about switches or another type of devices, but try to be less generic and more focused on what is the problem that you're trying to solve. It's going to help you not just saving you money, but actually getting you better results out of this.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll mention too about that is the model that you're using. So if you're using Claude, there's a few options for you. There's Opus, which is the most expensive as well as the model that's going to give you the deepest analysis. There's Sonnet, which is kind of the more balanced model. It's about 5 times cheaper than Opus. And it can still perform analysis, just not as deep. And then there's Haiku, which is more for routine queries, and that's 12 times cheaper than Sonnet. So if you're trying to preserve token usage, there's another lever you can pull there as well.
And again, on those 3 models, I mean, it's a level of reasoning that is employed by all these models. So Opus is capable of very advanced reasoning, which you typically would want if you're solving problems. Sonnet doesn't go as deep, and that's why it's less expensive. It's less sophisticated reasoning. Haiku doesn't really reason. So I would stay clear of that for reasoning task, but Haiku is excellent, for example, at classification. That's why it's used as a router. You're trying to classify outcomes in certain places, actually Haiku performs better than Opus or Sonnet at that task. So, I mean, as you get more sophisticated, you can put a beginning layer that actually automatically routes these three models. But in general, if you're using these things, think, whether you need reasoning or you need to classify things into buckets or into problems, and you can choose different models for this.
Okay, let's talk use cases now. Is everyone followed up to this point? Are we doing okay? Let me know if you're lost. But we're going to transition now to use cases. So what I'm going to ask it is to I'm going to query it to ask where to list all the switches at this location. And it's first going to identify what site are we looking at, and then it's going to pull in all the switches from that location. Okay, so now I can see all the switches at this location and some information about it. This is the composite tool I mentioned in action, where it's not just listing the switches, but it's providing some additional location alongside it. And let's say that I know that I want to configure a sensor on these switches. It's important for me to monitor the CPU of these certain switches. And I don't have this configured today in the Domotz product. So I'm going to ask it, can you configure an SNMP sensor for monitoring?
While you're writing that, just as you write that, but the alternative to this is actually going to the application, find the switch that you want to enrich in with metrics, and then get into typing in an OID or finding an OID through a SNMP MIBWalk, so that you find the one that is relevant for you. And again, you can do that. You can just type what you want. And the other cool thing is that you can do that for multiple assets at once, as opposed to having to do, on a number of assets. You can say, one at a time. You can say, give me these 4 switches. Get me my CPU load on this. And Claude and AI in general, and there are microtik switches here, so very well documented, but this is actually true for most of them. And in this particular MIB, this particular ID is actually a common generic OID, but it will already know the OID for you. And so it's, as you can see, it's much faster than having to do this by going into, takes a lot of the pain away of actually configuring the metrics. In fact, it makes it so easy that you're going to be consuming a lot of metrics, very likely if you're starting this journey, because the more you know about your infrastructure, the more you're able to diagnose when things go wrong or why did they go wrong. So it's not just that they go wrong, but understanding the why is what having historical metrics allows you to do. And we'll see some of that actually.
So I just asked it, can you add a SNMP sensor to monitor the CPU of these switches? And I see we have a chat asking to reboot a device. We're going to actually, yes, you can. We're actually going to demonstrate that as well in a little bit too. So now I'm going to open up the device, one of the devices I asked it to configure in the Domotz product to show you. And I can see here that it has successfully added this as an MCP server, or added it as an SMP sensor, sorry. And I asked it to include MCP in the title so I could demonstrate that it actually did configure it. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to say, list all the, let's say, list all the values, list all the last values for these sensors. So I don't need to go into each switch. I can just say, you just configured the SNMP sensor for CPU for each one of these switches. Can you just tell me what the readings are on each one of those?
And again, having this information from an historical perspective allows you to correlate. Well, doesn't really, you don't have to do that. I mean, the machine can do it for you, where once you're going down through a root cause analysis and it correlates events. And so we just set it up, so there's no history. In fact, we deleted the history before so we could show.
Yeah, we did.
But normally when we do whatever troubleshooting event, the first thing it would do, if it's network related, it would go and check if at that space in time when the event happened, it would narrow down and see if there's a correlation with high CPU or high memory or high something. And so that's where this value is.
So we can take it a step further as well and ask it to set an alert trigger if they exceed 80%. And because we have the API endpoint to do that, it can actually do that as well. And we'll show you this as well in a second.
No, the MCP will not write. I mean, this is additive in the sense, I mean, depends what you do, but I'm not sure if actually we can delete, if the delete, in fact, if we routed it in, but right now, whatever is there right now is additive. You can add sensors. It's not going to mess with the ones that you have.
Okay, now I've opened up the same switch in the product, and going into the alert section, I can see that there is an alert created for if that sensor exceeds 80% as well. And it's still in the process of tying those alerts to my email. But you can see that it has been created.
But again, the cool thing about this is that you can take all your switches or all your routers or all your whatever it is. Doesn't matter if they have different, I mean, these are, and happen to be Raco switches, but you could do this across sites with all kinds of hardware. And you could say, get me all the switches, add CPU load, and get me an alert if it reaches above 80%. There's just one sentence, and just takes away probably an hour worth of configuration. I mean, depending on how big your sites, how many sites you have, but it takes away an hour configuration time. So it's quite compelling. As I said, I mean, the goal here is to take away the pain of setting up a monitoring system so you can start focusing on the value that it brings rather than the pain of setting it up.
So that I had a few more examples for configuring and setting up monitoring as the use case, but I want to move on because I'm conscious of time. But this is a huge benefit. I mean, going back to the slide Domenico shared at the beginning, the reason people don't adopt monitoring or only partially adopt it or don't utilize it in the best way they could is because it takes time and it's difficult to work with. And what you're seeing here is the barrier to entry for monitoring is being lowered significantly with a tool like this and can allow you to be much more efficient and faster when configuring a location or a device. So the next use case I want to show is a different one, which is how do I proactively identify issues? And I'm going to open up a new chat for this. And I'm going to say, using the data at this specific site, perform a health check. So let's say I've just deployed a collector to this site and I'm just trying to I'm just trying to audit it. How is it performing? Give me some information about where it's working and opportunities for improvement. And it's a very simple ask, just using the data available, do a Wi-Fi health check, and we'll see what it spits out here in a second. You can see its kind of thought process as it works through it. It's finding the agent. It's looking at the devices in the site. It's pulling the SNMP sensors for the different APs. Looking at speed test, etc.
And by the way, in this case, this is a setup. There's probably 7 or 8 Racos access points, and they are in the unleashed mode. So only the controller actually provides SNP data in that case. But AI understands which one is the controller, where to look. And you could actually augment even, I mean, we're just focusing on SNMP here, but we could actually augment even farther by leveraging the APIs, which is something that we're allowed to do in Domotz as well.
This is a bigger ask, so it's going to take a little bit more time. I wonder if there's any questions we can address in the meantime. How about this one? Domenico, do you want to take a stab at this one? Where is Claude getting the access to the specific devices to perform the actions? If it's the Domotz cloud, is it secure?
Yeah, so in here, what we're doing right now, in this very example, in fact, with Claude Desktop in this case in particular, but you're not touching, I mean, Jace does not have any access right now, direct access to that site. So all we're doing, we're like puppeteering Domotz commands to grab the data. So there's no access that, I mean, Claude is just a layer to operate Domotz. In this case, it doesn't have its own access into it. I mean, you could actually go much farther and beyond that. You could use, I mean, this goes beyond the realm of this webinar. You could use, Domotz and the collector to provide AI access and perform actually even remediation, for example. But right now, all the things that we've shown here are just us operating Domotz. So that it's like, instead of you doing things manually, AI is doing it for you. And in general, I believe, I mean, the world is changing. And I think software companies that provide data, especially telemetry, but I think frankly, trying data for solving a use case, more and more, we as a company need to start building for AI, because eventually the usage, I mean, people are going to ask AI to do things for them as opposed to do it themselves. And this is an example of it. So instead of you using Domotz, speak English to AI and let AI use Domotz, and we're trying to facilitate this exercise. What's happening here?
It just kind of froze. So I just asked it to change the markdown of it so it could get to the report a little bit faster. Okay, so here we go. So now we've asked it to perform the Wi-Fi health check. It spits out this executive summary, information about the infrastructure that's connected on this site. I mean, Domenico, as I kind of scroll through this, would you just explain, like, what's the value of this in comparison to, what's the difference between this process that we've just demonstrated and if you were to do it yourself, and what are the benefits?
I mean, to do yourself, I highly recommend against. It would take days to go through the numbers. So I don't think that's even a question. I think here what we have, I mean, potentially you could just go and query Rackus itself or the endpoint itself. I mean, the value of doing it via Domotz is you get the time element and kind of the wrapping around this that makes it really easy. You don't have to remember names of assets. You don't remember where they are. You can just speak English. Whereas if you're going down straight into kind of a platform, you would actually have to get to know the platform a lot more. So, I mean, frankly, this is a property where there's nobody and there's like 8 switches running wild. I don't even know why the memory, in fact, is got high utilization. That's worrying, in fact. But overall, you get the 10,000 foot view from multiple elements, and you get historical. So it may be fine now, it may not have been. And again, having all these things as metrics and having the history allows you to put things in perspective, which is very important. I mean, a lot of times it's not just like correlation. When you're doing root cause analysis, is causality, and causality has a temporal element. So if you're just looking at things right now, and even if you actually correlate things with one another, unless you know which one came first and which one came after, it's really hard to actually get any sense and get a proper root cause analysis. And so having something like Domotz combined with the power of AI, it really puts the inventory element, the metrics element, the causality element, and the temporal element together and provides a much better outcome.
Yeah. So while you're walking through that, I asked it to do a switch port capacity analysis at the site too, and you can see the results here where it's saying all of the ports that are utilized, all the ones that are free, and giving you kind of that big picture overview of if I'm going to deploy more PoE devices on here, depending on how many I'm going to deploy, I might need to reconfigure the way that this is set up today or add another switch, etc.
You want to show the prompt that you made for this?
I did. It's at the top. So I just said, can you check the switch port capacity utilization at VAC2, which is one of the sites that we have Domotz deployed at, and tell me if I should add another switch. And it's looking at all this information and compiling the answer, which is you don't really need one right now unless you're going to expand the network and add more devices to it. Okay, so that was like a proactively identifying issues use case. I want to show another use case, which would be root cause analysis. So let's say you get a ticket. This is a common ticket you might see, and I'm just going to put it in here, which is several devices at this site are showing intermittent connectivity. Help me find the root cause. And using the APIs available, it can perform root cause analysis and help you understand what could be the possible reasons why there's intermittent connectivity at this site.
And again, if you notice here, this site is not called London. It's smart enough to understand, from IP address geolocation, just because it says, LDN in the title, to actually match this. I mean, frankly, the other day it responded to me saying "ciao," and I'm like, why are you speaking to me? Oh no, it actually started talking like a bit pieces of Italian. I'm Italian. You actually started putting pieces of Italian in this, and it's like, why the hell are you speaking Italian to me? It's like, well, your name, first name and last name, unmistakably Italian. You said "ciao" in a sentence, and I inferred that, So, I mean, this thing is pretty smart. So it can really make your life easy in translating what is that you want, which is a simple sentence that we said, that we inputted into actually a very useful outcome from a business perspective. And what it's doing right now, by the way, and that's the cool thing about AI, AI is very methodical. So what it's really doing behind the scenes is really testing theories of anything that could be going wrong. And what it does, it looks for evidence of those theories so that it can falsify them or reinforce them. And so maybe it says, you know what, this could be one of 10 things or one of 20 things. And then it starts looking for data. And so it says, well, I thought it was this, but the data doesn't prove it. So I'm just going to discard this theory, and I'm going to raise this other theory because I'm finding evidence of this theory. And then it starts narrowing down until it actually finds a solution. So in this case, you could see this if you actually use, for example, Cloud Code or other stuff, because you can go more into the inside of what it's doing. But it goes into like a power issue or network availability, or like switch being overloaded, or in IP conflict, or it comes up with ideas, and then it looks for data. And that's why if you do this without just AI, without a monitoring system, you don't have that depth of understanding of all the things. So you don't have enough evidence to actually come up to a good RCA. So it's the combination of the two things. It's having something very smart, but also having data at your disposal formatted in a certain way and available that does that trick for you.
So Domenico, walk me through the results that you're seeing on this one too, where we've asked it to
in
say.
In this case, I mean, this is, I mean, these are like residential properties. I mean, they're relatively sophisticated, but I mean, they're residential properties. And in this case, there is touch panels that are flipping between a wired IP address and a wireless IP address. And when they start conflicting, they make they create ARP conflicts and creates a storm that starts propagating around the network, and it just starts slowing things down. And that's what this thing is identifying.
So we could take it a step further, and we could say something like this, I need to resolve this. We need to make the connectivity better at this site, and ask it to provide step-by-step instructions. Now, we experimented with this quite a bit into preparing for this webinar. And really, you could launch a VPN session with Domotz into that site to then triage this issue. We don't have time to demonstrate that, but I mean, you can take this a lot further as well.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is an intro session, but you could take it all the way and actually, and maybe not just with this version of Cloud Desktop, but you can take it farther and pretty easily actually allow AI to not just tell you how to do remediation, but some of these things you can easily do it themselves. I mean, of course, taking all the precautions needed, but it can make life easier.
Okay, we're running out of time. We have 5 minutes left. There's just a few things. There's one last thing I want to show you. Let's just show a simple example. So let's do one last example here, and I'm just going to put something simple like this and say my Apple TV is frozen at this location. I'm just going to ask it to power that down, and then I'm going to ask it to power it back on, just basically.
I think I powered it down too.
Oh, did you already power it down? Yeah. Well, let's see. It'll tell me in 1 second. So I told Domenico that, the environment we have connected here is the house that he's in. So I told him that we should just end the webinar by cutting off all of his wireless, shutting it all down. Okay, so it is down right now because it's saying, hey, the only action you can take is power it on.
This is the simplest action that we could take. As I said, I mean, you can have all kinds of action triggered by this, from config backup. You can compare configurations. You can take down configuration, compare them. The sky's the limit, frankly. I mean, you should think about it as a little bit kind of like a colleague on the side that can do the dirt work for you. You just need to ask like business questions. Don't think of functionality. Think of user problems, and that's when you get the most out of AI. It's not trying to do the work for the sake of the work, but actually to get an answer to a business problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can see there, it powered that device back on. So wrapping this up, first of all, my phone's already blowing up with chats on the subreddit that I need to respond to. So I have a short meeting after this, and then I'll dive in and answer your questions. But please keep them coming. We'd love to engage and help you get to a place where it's functional for you. Another thing is, I've seen some chats come in, what does this look like from a development perspective? Obviously, it's something that, today, like we said at the beginning, this is kind of think of it as like a beta. I think as you dive in more, you'll find that there's opportunities for tuning and improvement, as there always is. And we would love to hear that feedback as well. But obviously, I think this is where the world's heading. And the good news is that our API today is very well documented. So we have a little bit of a head start to make it useful for you. The last thing I want to share here is like, what's the real power of the MCP? And we've shown examples in this webinar, but I just want to kind of throw it out there that the real power can be, you can use your imagination. So I had this idea when I was building this. I was like, hey, what if I'm a managed service provider, or maybe even I'm an internal IT professional, and I have some key stakeholders that I need to demonstrate my work to. Oftentimes in IT, you don't know that if you're doing a good job, you're not hearing from the IT people, right? And that's like hard to convey, because then if you're doing such a good job, they're like, what are these people doing for me? They're not even working. But behind the scenes, you're making sure that they don't need to talk to you. So I had this idea of like, hey, what if we could proactively compile a report for a site and share it? And you can demonstrate like, hey, look, here's the uptime of this site, all these devices and all these different sensors and metrics that we're monitoring to make sure that you have a good experience and your employees can be effective, and we're not bottlenecking any success for your organization. So this is just one example. I think there's probably a million others. And as you all dive in and experiment with this yourself, I'd love to hear other ones that you come up with. So please share those as you go and experiment with this after the webinar. We don't have time for questions.
Send feedback, and there was a form at the beginning if you want to get more involved. This is it's not even a beta, is a baby beta. There's like a lot more than can get done, but we didn't want to go straight into complicated stuff. So, but if you do have an interest and you want to spend the time to make your life easier, frankly, because that's ultimately what this allows you, do get in touch, and we'll have more in-depth conversations and about this.
Yes, and while you're here, and while we wrap up, keep the question coming on Reddit. Like I said, I'll be there later today and answering questions. I just want to make a shameless, selfish promotion here of our next webinar. Destiny, who's usually here and is usually the one that drives all the registrations. You all want to hear from Destiny. I know that she's excellent at network monitoring and can get way deeper into the weeds than I can. We have another webinar coming up next month, and Destiny can share the link to the Actually, I have it here. Destiny's already on it. Share the link to this webinar where we are going to show you how to step-by-step build a reliable network visibility in Domotz specifically. Now, if you already have Domotz deployed, you may think, I've already got it deployed. But I think what you're going to realize if you attend this webinar is there's a lot more that you could be doing to set yourself up for success in Domotz. And Destiny is going to walk through step-by-step how do you do that. So I'd highly recommend joining us at that next webinar. It's going to be a great learning experience for you and going to be very tactful in the sense that you can leave the webinar with a much more complete understanding on how to set yourself up for success in monitoring. Okay, and with that, thanks everyone for joining today. The recording is going to be live on our Domotz YouTube channel immediately at the conclusion of this webinar. So if you want to go back and revisit anything that was shared, do so there. And we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.